Welcome, everyone, to the Cover One Buffalo podcast. I am your host, Greg Tompsett, joined tonight by my partner in crime, Aaron Quinn. Festive as always. Aaron, how are we doing?
I'm fantastic, man. Really liked some of the things I saw today, and we'll get into that. But then it's so close to Christmas now. We're in single digits, dude, and you know how I feel about Christmas. So I'm ready, man. I'm excited.
Yeah, I can't lie. We seeing each other on Facebook and everything like that, we've found to be kindred spirits. Both of us are little kids at Christmas, so I definitely love it.
Yeah, I'm definitely a child when it comes to this time of year, and I think that's okay. It's the one time of year you can be a child and nobody can really say anything to you.
I love it. I love it. So before we jump into everything tonight, just a quick reminder, head on over to cover1.net. Have a lot of awesome things going on there. The great coverage as usual. Just brought over a new contributor there, Jordan Reed. Fantastic on the draft coverage. Also has a lot of insight on the Vikings. We've got the coverage going for, the Giants, for the Cowboys, and obviously your in-depth coverage on the Buffalo Bills. You had the 4 up, 4 down coming in already. You may be able to come in and kind of get an idea of what's going on now as well as in the future. Russell and Christian crushing the draft coverage already, being able to go in and kind of get an idea of what's going on now. Everything that we have going on the draft coverage. Obviously, a lot of exciting things. We got an entire squad of people heading down there for the Senior Bowl. So just a lot of great stuff happening. And obviously, I know it's my favorite part of it. But Aaron, what are your thoughts on the premium membership and the Slack channel?
It's my favorite thing I do on the internet right now. My wife was using my phone earlier this morning, and the Slack kept popping up. And she's like, "How do you use your phone like this?" And I said, "I love it. It absolutely makes my day all the time to have just a group of people that you're not really. There's arguments, there's good discussions, there's healthy debate, but it isn't the type of stuff that you get on a lot of the other websites out there where people are just trying to ridicule each other. There's really none of that going on in the Slack channel. And that in itself is my favorite part. But then you get into the premium content that we have too, and that stuff that's members only. And Eric in the Slack channel, Eric is posting things in the film room to kind of digest and discuss. And you get to kind of pick Eric's brain, and people get to suggest things like that. What kind of content. He'll come into the Slack channel and say, "What kind of content do you guys want to see this week?" And we start to pick through, and he'll give us little slivers of the content, sneak peeks, and all that stuff. I've never been a smart football fan. I've always been a passionate football fan, but in the time that I've been in the Slack and working with Eric and working with all you guys and the people in the Slack community, I think I've started to become a pretty intelligent football fan. I'm not going to lie. I think I've learned a little something here. So it's a great group of people, and I couldn't be more happy to be part of it.
Yeah, I really like the way you describe that. And that's what I like about it, is that it's so much of what you find on social media is people desperately trying to be right. And it doesn't matter how nasty or personal or how binary people have to be that, if I don't if you're not agreeing with me, then what you're saying is completely ridiculous. And what I really like is that you have a lot of passionate but informed fans that care about the Bills. They know what's going on, and we're open to nuance and the different big, I guess that would work, but yeah, this would be a good idea too. It's very collaborative, and it's great on game day. It's fantastic just having people go back and forth and things you might not have picked up on, and you'll go back and be like, oh man, that was a killer block. Just things having people, united and kind of all rooting in the same direction is fantastic.
Yeah, but, not always rooting, but even the frustrating parts of having people that you can be frustrated with and not get to the point of anything too negative. You can have some frustration, laugh about it, make fun of it, and then move on. That's also, I think, a good part and part of the healing process on some of the losses. The Slack's been pretty fantastic to help get through that.
No, absolutely. Yeah. Being able to compartmentalize and segment that just because today sucked doesn't mean everything sucks. And then you get bonuses like today where it doesn't suck. And a bonus, not only did the Buffalo Bills pull through with a nice victory here at home, 14-13 over the Detroit Lions, we also got to see the Dolphins get shellacked, which was fun. And the Patriots lost. And it was just a lovely day.
Yeah, and right now it's 2-2 Buffalo at Boston. So hopefully the Sabres can pull it out and just make a really nice week before Christmas for us.
Yeah, truly great Sunday. So let's dive right into it here. Before we go into the awards and the gruntled, disgruntled, what were your overall thoughts on the game coming away from what we both predicted to be a pretty ugly game? We were actually pretty darn close in our predictions, and I think we went some 17-14. We were right in this ballpark. So what were your overall thoughts on the game?
Yeah, before I get into it right now, Sabres scored again. So Sabres up 3-2 for all of those watching. So hopefully a good weekend here for the city of Buffalo. And it was Skinner again. So, but to the game, I think it's exactly what we expected. Two teams that aren't very good. There would be moments of very sluggish, kind of boring football. I think that whole first quarter, everybody was kind of like, wow, that went really fast. That wasn't very pretty at all. There were some nice things. We saw some nice things out of Josh Allen on that first drive. Obviously didn't end in points, but there were some things, if you're an optimist, that you could pull out of there. But as far as if you were a casual football fan watching that game, I felt sorry for people that didn't have any rooting interest that maybe were stuck with that game today. But I think basically what we expected it would be.
Yeah, I agree. It was, I actually remember looking down at the clock because I couldn't believe how quick the first quarter was over. I think it was like 24 minutes of real time, which is just crazy. It was 3.5 drives back and forth. Detroit had the ball during their start to the drive, but basically 3 drives that ended in a punt. The Bills somehow ran a 12-play, 45-yard drive. That's always interesting, but you could tell that there was a vested interest in getting the run game established. And although it wasn't pretty and wasn't efficient by any means, I think our longest run overall was 10 yards. But there was a lot of at least positive gains. There weren't a lot of real ugly losses of yards and ground out 117 yards. But I think that any game that you can have, 37 rushing attempts, only 26 passing attempts, that's probably a good safe game plan for us. So it was the ugly grind out game that we expected, and honestly probably fortunate, because if you see Matt Prater makes most kicks under 50 yards, so him missing a 48-yarder there certainly could have changed the dynamics of the game, although we obviously had the ball at the end and had a great chance to be able to go in and possibly take the lead back. But it was nice to see the overall thoughts on it.
Yeah, and it was nice to see. I know a lot of people won't like it, but it's always nice to see guys still playing hard. There isn't a lot to play for. And I was on Sportsnet 590 a couple weeks ago, and Raj over there on Sportsnet was asking me, like, how does McDermott keep this team focused and getting up? And I said, I don't think that him and this locker room and the leadership council that he has is going to have a problem continuing to play for him. And that's a great thing for a Bills fan. I think that goes unnoticed a lot. I think even though they're pros and they get paid to go play, it's hard to get up and get too excited when you're out of the playoffs. There isn't really anything to play for. All the media and people, when you get on Twitter, are just talking about draft and prospects and all of the things like that. So to be able to come out, you saw the guys getting hyped up. You saw Josh Allen hyped up, Poyer hyped up. So those little things are great, I think, for the long-term success. It's not going to help your draft position. I don't think they're going to win a lot of games or do anything crazy, obviously, but it is a small, important thing that's nice to see.
Yeah, and I think it actually speaks to, I know a lot of the cliches and people go nuts on Twitter when you get into, culture versus strategy and things like that. But that really is part of that culture, because it's the kind of players that they're looking for are the ones who are going to stay engaged, stay working hard, and are going to be interested in winning a game in week 16, week 15 of the season. When they're already eliminated and they're not cashing it in. And you saw plenty of ugly games today. There were 2 shutouts in the NFL today that you almost never see. And obviously some teams kind of packing it in that are just done for the year and ready to be over with. So I think it speaks well to the organization. I think it speaks well to the coaching staff. I think it speaks well to the kind of players that they have here. And the exciting part is the players who were contributing today are guys who I think have a very good chance of being on this roster next year. We'll kind of go through that when we get into the offense and some of the pieces on defense. But the contributions that you saw today are from pieces that are going to be here long term. And that's really what you care about these final weeks, is to make sure that we're going the right direction and building towards something to really evaluate what our roster is and what we need to fill in the gaps on.
Yeah, and I tweeted out as much. I saw right after we won, I saw people are already kind of talking about, well, if they would have lost this game with the other losses that occurred, they would have been in this draft position. And like, I hate to be that guy, but I don't particularly care where, with the games left to play and development left to still see, I don't particularly care where the draft position ends up. I've always been a person that says it's not necessarily always where you draft, it's who you draft, and trusting your front office and scouts, which I do. They've given me no really reason to not trust where they would pick. So it's about getting the right guys in the draft, not always being at the top of it. Would it be nice to be able to have great development and be at the top of the draft? Sure, in a perfect world, but I take development over it every day. And wins, even a 1-point win against a bad team, is still important to the long-term development of these young guys. And McDermott's been preaching it since he got in here, of learning how to win and establishing that standard and showing guys how to win in this league. And you got to do it. And it doesn't help the position this spring, but I'm okay with that at this point because I think it helps the development more. And really, I'm more interested in the development of the guys that will be here versus, being up 3 spots on the draft board.
Yeah, we'll get to that. And obviously, I we've talked about this every week that when we're in the game, I just don't have it in me not to root for a win. That's just how I'm wired, and that I want the team to win when I'm watching the game. Now, when they lose, when that happens, I'm fine looking at that as a silver lining and as a possible benefit to it. But I'm just not wired that way to root for a loss, regardless of the strategic benefit. And beyond that, unless you're really looking for the number 1 pick because you need a quarterback, everything else is a crapshoot anyways. And that the difference between pick 7 and pick 12 just isn't a life-changing difference. So don't get me wrong, I want the highest pick we can, and that's great, whether that's more leverage for a trade-up or just a better option of the best player available on the board. But I don't believe any of those things hold a candle to Josh Allen learning to win, Josh Allen developing, and the team learning how to build a winning culture, and that we don't want to have a quitting attitude to it. So I'm fine supporting that and want to be able to move forward, being able to learn to win. And if we can get a beneficial draft pick, that's great. But, I don't think that tanking is a real thing in the NFL. These guys are laying their health and bodies on the line every week to be able to put good film up there, to be able to, provide for their futures. And I respect building an organization that wants to drive for that.
Yeah, and we talk about it a lot lately. It's not just Josh. Obviously, Josh Allen's the one we all care about the most and where his development is because he's such a polarizing figure, and the national media really pick up on that. But it's the other guys, too. I think that is just as important as the whole. You saw today Murphy and Ford getting a lot of carries. One of those guys, if not both of them, are going to be on the roster this summer, competing for a job in the backfield next year. So the more real-time reps those guys can get, holy cow. I mean, that's going to be really hard to you can't really replicate that by having Ford on the practice squad. So that type of development, Levi Wallace getting real action against the top wide receivers in the NFL, guys like that you're seeing getting a lot of playing time, Harrison Phillips, these young guys, it's really playing. They still have a lot of old guys. So the overall roster isn't the youngest in the league, but I think they're playing more first and second year players than anybody in the league by a pretty substantial amount.
It's right there. I know at one point they were top 3. Now I think that with the other moves they've made, they have to be right up there at the top. And again, it's all about, development and youth movement. So let's dive right into it for our normal weekly awards program. Everyone knows the term disgruntled, and it just makes me feel like the term gruntled needs a little bit more attention. It gets its moment in the sun. So for our player of the game, what were your thoughts, and who's your gruntled of the game?
My gruntled is going to be, I'm going to go with the easy route and go with Josh Allen. We talked about it a little bit here before we went live. He didn't do anything amazing. His stat line wasn't fantastic. I know people are going to harp on the completion percentage all week. I'm prepared to do battle with anyone on Twitter that wants to show up in my mentions and talk about his completion percentage because I'm not upset about it right now in this part of his development. I think that he'll get there. I think you probably have better statistics and something we could talk about later of the things that happened in the game that probably would have changed that completion percentage substantially. And a lot of it has to do with talent. So what I saw that really excited me out of him is we really only saw a handful of the hero ball plays. Obviously we talk a little bit different if 2 of those picks end up happening, that the Bills were lucky enough they weren't picks. That fumble on the 4th down didn't end up mattering because it was a 4th down. I'd like to see him play a little bit better with ball security there, running around. He's got that Shady McCoy wanting to kind of keep the ball out there a little bit. I don't love that. But outside of that, what I did see was he made some timing and anticipation throws. He made throws with touch, which is something that people said that he wasn't ever going to be able to do. He didn't know which golf clubs to use. We saw that today. Some of the throws to Foster were just nice, soft touch throws. He wasn't blowing them in there for guys. He knew when to put some heat on it and knew when to pull back a little bit. Even simple things like screen passes, bubble screens, those are things in college that he struggled to get the ball down accurate to the receiver. He was doing those things. So it doesn't always show up in the box score. It doesn't always show up, on the scoreboard necessarily, but I'm seeing the development that I need to see. And I think that the Lions tried to keep him in the pocket and make him throw, and he did. And he did enough to keep the Bills in the game and win.
Absolutely. And I think that it's exciting to see that. And we'll get into it more when we get into the offense, but I think that's a great choice. Just to be a little bit different, I am going to go with Robert Foster. I thought that, again, he had a really nice game, was consistently contributing. I think, honestly, with, we'll get to it in the disgruntled, but, it really stepped up as almost our top offensive threat today. Had some of the most targets on the team, was consistently making himself available and out there, just contributing, and right now leads the NFL in yards per catch. So just someone that we need to be really excited for the past 5 weeks. Has 4 out of those 5 over 90 some yards a game. Had one clunker in there, but the rest of them he's averaging almost 100 yards a game overall and 24 plus yards per catch. So just really exciting to be able to see everything that they're putting together. And overall, Josh really probably does deserve the player of the game, but just want to give a shout out to Robert Foster.
Yeah, his development's been very exciting. And again, one of those guys that we're talking about development. The more reps he gets, the better off the Bills are going to be going into the offseason, right? I mean, it's playing with free money. If he is a guy that is on the 53 and a contributor next year, you landed that essentially for nothing, really. You talk about that contract control all the time. I mean, that'd be huge for this front office.
Oh, yeah. So next year, we already have him under contract at the minimum. Then we have the exclusive rights free agency. So the same idea is what we've had the last couple of years with Eddie Yarborough. Anytime you find an undrafted free agent who is a genuine contributor and can stick on the roster, it's just so ridiculously valuable. It's like I used the term before. It's like $1 million coupon. You get a, top draft level control, because you still get the 4-year window that they're under contract control, but you get it at the minimum. So some people underestimate that, it's not a huge difference, but, Shaq Lawson is $2.8 million this year, going to be 3.2 next year. I know that, Deion Dawkins and Zay are both, 1.3, 1.7, 1.9, 2.1 as they get through their years. So that's not a huge number, and it's great when they contribute. But when you get that same young contribution level at 550,000 locked in, and all of a sudden you get a couple of those, which we had in Yarborough, we now looks like we might have in Foster, we might have in Levi Wallace, we might have in Isaiah McKenzie. You start to get that really low level contract locked in, contract control over 4 years, and there you get 4 or 5 of those guys. That's like a free $4 or $5 million that you get to contribute somewhere else. So they can really add up, and it really speaks to the pro scouting department and what the team has built, being able to bring players like that in. And one of the silver linings of having a lost season here, where we're not in the playoffs but can develop and look at those young players. So certainly something positive. How about on the negative? How about on the negative side for you?
Well, I don't know if you noticed, Sabres did win, so we got the Sunday sweep.
All right.
In Buffalo, so more to be excited about. On the negative side, I think that there's probably some things on the offensive side that we could talk about. I'm going to stay consistent here, just because they didn't lose the game like they did a week ago, but I was still not happy with the performance of the special teams, and I'm still not happy with the performance of Danny Crossman. And I'm going to keep stumping on this until I see him gone. We saw an offensive coordinator fired last week. I know there was some argument that I was having on Twitter of, you don't fire coordinators mid-season. You don't do it this time of year. John DeFilippo, who was a hot coaching candidate, got the can this week for his unit's failure to produce. And we're seeing that from Danny Crossman. You kind of alluded to it in the Slack channels. There's something kind of weird about what's going on with Hauschka. Not really sure where that's going right now, but not kicking field goals. Didn't seem very McDermott-like. So that kind of threw a little bit of a red flag. But outside of the Hauschka thing, you had the botched attempt to get it out of the goal line. It was a nice punt. Gave the Gunners a chance. Those guys run into each other. That's some kind of a communication issue. I don't know if you could put it all on Crossman, but I'm not a big fan of coincidences. And every game I'm seeing things on the side of the special teams that you'd like to see better. And again, I'll quote McDermott. They're setting a standard, and I'm just not seeing that standard. You see glimpses of it on the offensive side of the ball. You see a lot of it on the defensive side of the ball. I really don't see any of it on the special team side.
Yeah, I think that's very fair. And obviously, I will be shocked if we see Danny Crossman back. Not only shocked, I'll be disappointed if we see Danny Crossman back. So I certainly hope that we see a change there. And I speak to it a lot that I think that both penalties and special teams are a direct correlation to quality depth. The better your depth is, the better talent you have down from your 30th to your 53rd guy on the roster, the better your special teams are going to be. And then you're going to have guys whose heads aren't racing and aren't worried about making the roster the next week. And I think you're going to have less penalties and less issues there with more consistency. So I think there's a direct correlation that we're going to have that $55 million in dead cap back. It's actually $70 million now after the Kelvin Benjamin deal. We're going to have that money back and available to fill in the depth of the roster here and really be able to have a lot more quality from top to bottom. And I think we're going to see a direct correlation there, hopefully with a better special teams coordinator along with it. My disgruntled is it's probably unfair because I think it's at a much higher threshold and expectation, but it's going to be a combination of Zay Jones and even Trey White. Zay was really poor today, 1 catch on 6 targets. I counted 3 of them as dropped, but at least 2 of them are going to be credited directly as drops. And I know that Josh Allen has a cannon and is firing those balls in there, maybe sometimes harder than what's necessary, but the route running wasn't perfect today. There was a lot of drops. There was a lot of, poor balls that he had chances to extend drives and to make some big plays for Josh Allen. And, the box score scouts are just going to look at his completion percentage, and I'll get into that breakdown when we get into the offense, but Zay was a big piece of that. And then at the very other end of the scale, Tre'Davious White is our best player. I think he's our most talented player. I think he has a chance to be an all-pro next year and into the future. And today just wasn't his day. And there was a couple of them that I think were some bad footing. He didn't have a chance to go up for the ball. You have a really tall, really big, really athletic receiver in Kenny Galladay, who is a tough matchup for anyone. You had a couple really tough catches that he was in place for. But it's fairly rare that you have someone of Trey's caliber that only flashed from a negative standpoint early on. And later on, he did come back, had a couple pass breakups, I think got himself in there to try to get back. And we didn't see a ton of big plays for Galladay in the second half. But in that first half, man, there were 4 or 5 rough plays that, just aren't his caliber and up to his standards. So doesn't change any of my outlook of how fantastic he is long-term. But just seeing that on somebody that we completely take for granted that, no matter what, it doesn't matter if it's DeAndre Hopkins, if it's, T.Y. Hilton, if it's Julio Jones, if it's Kenny Galladay, we take it for granted that, Trey's got him. That guy's done for the day. And Galladay went for, I think, like 120 of his 146 yards in the first half. So it was his career high, and a fair amount of that was on Trey White. And you normally don't see that. So just something that we hope is a blip on the radar.
I'm mad at you. We don't disagree a lot, but I'm going to have to ask you to retract that statement. No, I get the frustration. I saw a lot of undue frustration towards Trey on Twitter. Guys are going to give up. I was really only upset with the 2 plays. Some of the penalties that he got, a lot of that stuff's up in the air. I see it all the time, whether it gets called or not. The NFL is very inconsistent about calling pass interference and when and how they call it. So I'm sure that he's doing a lot of it that we just don't see when balls aren't going his way. That's something that's going on throughout the game. So I'm not mad about that, but there was a couple plays. I think the one he lost his footing. I'm not going to be mad at that. Galladay is also a guy that's going to go up to get balls. I would have liked to see him turn his head on that big first one and make a play on it, but it is what it is. But I think what the thing that you see about Trey is that second half, and he showed it even with that rookie year, giving up the big play to AJ Green. He gave up a couple plays. He came back and played. You go back and watch that game. The second half of that game, he came back and played step for step with AJ Green, and to have that ability to put giving up plays behind you that Trey has is another great asset that he has. So I'm mad at you. I'm going to write to Santa and put you on the naughty list for speaking ill of Tre'Davious.
I promise I'll try to clean it up. We'll talk about it when we get to the
yeah. Let's go. Yeah.
That I think that there are plenty of things that we did see. We saw 2 different defenses from the first to the second half, and he was a big piece of that. But let's dive into the offense first. Obviously, our offense is pretty much Josh Allen and then a couple other people you might have heard of. So I think it was a little bit more of that today. I think this kind of does show for a lot of the people that have been hating on LaShawn McCoy specifically that, Chris Ivory had his shot last week with the vast majority of carries. Ford and Murphy both had it today. Both of them were in the low threes per carry. Detroit is a decent run defense, but nothing special. They were giving up like the 20th most fantasy points to running backs. So they're certainly able to be gotten. Obviously the offensive line is the biggest, center of our issues from a running standpoint, and it gives me some hope that LaShawn McCoy can be a contributing factor next year. But I thought that Keith Ford and Marcus Murphy looked okay today. As you said, I think that it's fair to wonder if they're going to be a piece of our team next year. I think we should expect both of them to be on the 90-man and go into training camp. I don't know that I'll be surprised if neither of them make the 53. I think it's possible, but I don't know that I think either of them are likely to make the 53 next year beyond, maybe I'd categorize them as possible. What are your thoughts on the running game today?
Well, I was encouraged to see Keith Ford. I was a little nervous. Obviously, Murphy goes down. You don't really know what's going to happen. Ford, 3.3 per carry for a guy that's never touched a ball in a regular season game. I'll take that. You know what I mean? That I didn't expect much from him. I think when people heard that he was coming up from the practice squad, I think I said it on the podcast with Russell that he's got a little bit of that Brandon Riley where he performed well in the preseason and people had higher expectations for him than who he actually is. But I mean, if he could be a guy that if you're really in a bind and he's that third running back on your team, or maybe the guy on the practice squad that you bring up in the case of emergency like he was today, I'm totally happy with that. I think he's a guy that, like you said, will be on the 90, and they'll probably try to stash him away on the practice squad for one more year and really see if he has any development. He got recruited as a pretty big name running back out of high school to some big schools. So there's some talent there that everybody sees. I just don't think he's ready for anything more than where he's at right now. I agree. Murphy, he's still, that first drive, I thought, hey, this is the guy we saw in preseason. Obviously he has the injury, but I just don't know that he can do it consistently throughout a game. So I think next summer is going to be a big one for him. But the run game is really disappointing because I thought that was going to be the highlight of this offensive line after what we saw over the last couple of years. It really isn't been that way. I had much bigger expectations for John Miller, seeing how good of shape he was this summer. Him posting all over social media that he was really ready to come out and prove himself. And I just have not seen the same guy that he was earlier on his career. So that was a little bit disappointing. Obviously you lose Richie and Eric and something's going to go down in the run game a little bit, but I expected a lot better than this. And the only thing I guess I'm glad about is that I have been telling people it's not all LaShawn McCoy. People told me I was crazy and get rid of him and he's useless to us now. And I don't think that's the case. I think it's just there's no holes. Nobody's running behind this line.
Yeah, it's by far our number one need in my mind, by a lot. I know a lot of people, want to talk about offensive skill players and weapons, but I think that we see so many other teams. Anybody who watched that Thursday night game, the Chiefs and the Chargers were both down to their fourth string running back, and they both look fantastic and probably won a handful of people listening right now. Their fantasy semifinal matchup. So
look at Pittsburgh just today.
Yeah, bringing in, they're on their third and fourth string running back. When you have a good offensive system, good line, and obviously quarterback makes a huge difference, you can make a lot of running backs work. So I want to see us bring in, I know that a bunch of guys have been asking and talking in the chat. I'd like to see them bring in a mid-round running back as a fourth or fifth round pick. I think can come in and contribute. I think it's 50-50 or better that both Chris Ivory and Shady are on the roster next year, but neither are a lock. There's both substantial cap savings with cutting either of them, and they're both going to be 31. So I don't think it's a lock that any of them are there, but logically I'd keep Shady and Ivory. I'd draft our future guy in the fourth round. I'd let them walk the next year, and then I'd draft another guy in the mid round there and have the second year guy and the rookie guy going into 2020, along with a undrafted free agent or a veteran minimum free agent guy. And that's how I would build my running back room going forward. And you keep picking a running back every other year for a while until you hit on one, because the NFL shows today you need consistent fresh legs and just warm bodies in there to be able to make it work. So that's how I would approach the running back room.
I think I think running back similar to how I view cornerback. Obviously, cornerback you need at least a little bit more top heavy on your starters, but you keep drafting those guys and fill your practice squad with those types of guys in the bottom of your depth chart because you need as many of them as you can get because at some point somebody's got to come in and play that role. So as many guys as you can get, draft them every year because you're always going to need them. And I feel the same way about running back. Keep finding guys that can just plug in. The best teams do that. They just always have guys, like you said. So do that. Back to the offensive line, I totally agree with you. That needs to be revamped whatever way possible, however they have to spend their treasures that they have of assets to build that up. But what I want to see when they build that up is no Juan Castillo in charge of the development of the next guys, because obviously the talent level is not on him. You can't always coach talent, but we really haven't seen development of the offensive line. So throughout the season, you'd at least like to see some progress and development of guys. I think if anything, some guys have gone down a little bit. Deion Dawkins comes to mind as a guy that has taken a step back a little bit this year. So I don't want to see Castillo be given the keys to a first round offensive tackle, or something like that. I want to see a fresh start at that whole unit.
Yeah, I think it's interesting the way you put that there are plenty of reasons that the layperson like you or I don't know the intricacies of offensive line play, and I can't break down the film. What I can tell you is there are guys that Castillo's had for 2 and 3 years now with Deion Dawkins, John Miller, and Jordan Mills, and they've all gotten worse. So they have not only not developed, they have taken a material, noticeable step back. Now, I know a piece of that is losing a Pro Bowl level center who makes all the calls and a Pro Bowl level guard to be next to Dawkins. So I give Dawkins a little bit of a pass. He's still our best guy, but he's taken a step back undoubtedly in year two. And then the other guys, I don't know that we have another player that I feel good needs to be on the roster next year. I'm confident that out of the 8 to 10 guys we've had active, 3 or 4 of them probably will be on the roster next year, but I wouldn't be heartbroken if Dawkins was the only one who survived year over year. Wyatt Teller's been okay. I think he's been maybe slightly better than a 5th round pick, and maybe he's contributing at a mid round pick level, but he hasn't been some amazing breath of fresh air that, oh, good, we have our future left guard forever now. If he comes back and contributes and competes and is there, maybe he's your lesser of evils, and then we can replace him in 2020 if it's a problem. But we have to have a new center. We have to have a new right guard. We have to have a new right tackle. Now, in my mind, I need to be open to the fact that guard or tackle might be Deion Dawkins. I would love to go down the path of drafting Jonah Williams, who's my draft crush, in the 1st round, and then even signing Darrell Williams from Carolina to play right tackle and move Dawkins into guard. A lot of people thought he could be a dominant guard in the early draft process. I'm also fine if they draft or sign a franchise level left tackle. Maybe he'll do a little bit better on the right side. So I think we need to be open to him moving, but some combination of one major free agent, if not 2. My guess is it's going to be one big splurge at the 12 to 15 million a year level, 2 more, 2-year, $5 million a piece, like solid, better than a Jordan Mills and Russell Bodine contract, but not the premier level. Maybe 2 more of those guys. Then I think one of our 1st or 2nd round picks is an offensive lineman, and I think we see another one in the 4th or 5th round with our 2 picks in the 4th and 2 picks in the 5th. So I think we're going to end up adding 4 or 5 new linemen that are all going to be pretty good shots to make the roster, and then Dawkins, realistically, Teller's going to be on the roster because he's there. I'm actually fine if Bodine is our backup interior guy as the backup center, backup guard. And then pretty much everybody else, I wish you all the best and won't be sad if I never see him again.
Yeah, get him out of there. It's definitely the biggest need. I totally agree with you, and I think you can find the skill positions elsewhere, and I think they'll still address that. They have the assets to fix, a full position and a half and then some depth. So we'll see some additions. I do want people to kind of remember here, I know a lot of people have talked about this offseason. I don't know that this is going to be what the Bears were doing. We've compared it to the Bears a little bit, but I don't know that the Bills are in the position to fix really everything in 1 year and then go out and win the division. This is going to be the next 2 seasons of fixing. It's going to take a whole season to fix the offensive line and just the wide receivers. Then you're still going to have holes in linebacker, second cornerback. There's still holes kind of in the depth of this team. So it's a lot of work ahead, but some exciting work. If they can fix that line, man, that really makes a lot of things easier on the development of Josh Allen, on getting the skill guys open, getting Shady going again, and whoever they have at running back. So it's definitely the top priority. McDermott gets killed by the media and fans alike when he talks about establishing the line of scrimmage. I don't care what the trends in the NFL are as far as teams scoring 40 points. Those teams still score 40 points by dominating at the point of attack at the line of scrimmage. Like if you don't protect your quarterback and establish some type of run game, you're not scoring 40 points in a game. And I think that his comments get misconstrued as, oh, he wants to win games like this, 10-6, 14-13. And I don't think that it could be further from the truth. I think when he's saying establish the line of scrimmages, it starts up front on both sides of the ball. You got to get pressure on the quarterback, and you got to protect your quarterback and establish the run. And I think that is definitely the goal going into the offseason.
The trickle-down effect it's going to have is just so powerful. Not only is it just plain and simply more time and protection for Josh Allen, but it lets you run the ball, just like you said. That running lets you establish better play action. That helps Josh as well. It's just a huge domino effect of what you can establish there. And my number one example is look at the Indianapolis Colts. The Indianapolis Colts got mauled year after year. They lost Andrew Luck and literally jeopardized his career by getting him mauled over and over again. They go into this offseason. They spend huge on one addition. They draft a guy in the first, second, and third round, and boom, they remade their offensive line in one season. Now, they did have a very fortunate trade with soon-to-be fired Tannenbaum from the Jets. But either way, they used the resources that they collected.
They had them
to be able to go in there and, bring in some quality level, draft picks that were able to do that, plus some major free agent spending. So,
I got
it's a huge opportunity.
I got in so many arguments this draft season. Obviously, a lot of Bears fans follow me. If people follow me, they know. Talking about Quentin Nelson, people were telling me, you don't take a guard that high. You do not take a guard that high. And I was like, dude, this guy's going to come in and he's going to play at an all-pro level immediately. And there isn't anybody in this draft like that, but I wouldn't be mad if there was and the Bills took him, because you see the impact that the Colts have had by fixing that line right away. I mean, it looks night and day from what they've been over the last 3 years.
Oh, yeah. Go ask the Colts if they regret that or have any buyer's remorse on that pick. They'll laugh at you before you finish the sentence.
Yeah, so it's not always the sexy pick. I do get it. You get a good pick, and they take a lineman. And obviously the Bills have a bad history of drafting a lineman high with our friend Mike Williams there. But it's not a sexy pick, but you got to fix it. You can't put it off. It's not one of these positions that you can just kind of patch along and hope that it works out. You really got to aggressively attack it and address it.
Yeah, absolutely. While we're talking about the offense, we've gone through the running game and the offensive line. Obviously, there's a huge opportunity with Josh Allen and what we're looking at and where things are going to his game. And I think you said it really well in the Gruntled Award.
Thank you.
In that he wasn't amazing today, but he was really good, and that it was just something exciting to be able to see that he doesn't have to have the hero ball mentality all the time. The Detroit Lions were running a 3-man rush with a 1-man spy almost every single play, just containing him in there, very, very preoccupied with not letting him run. He didn't run a lot today. He only ran the ball 9 times for 16 yards. 2 of those were on quarterback sneaks, and 2 of them were on kneel downs. So he really only ran the ball 5 times for 5 times for 16 yards, including the nice touchdown scramble, and everything else was in the pocket. And I know his stat line is going to look like, 200 yards passing, 1 touchdown, 50% completion percentage. But it's just crazy to look at that and not to realize that from my notes, before we get, the PFF stats will come out here, I had him down for 3 throwaways that were plays that he had a chance to be able to throw the ball away to, live and fight another day. He had 3 drops and could be as many as 5, but I counted 3 for sure drops. He had the nice deep defensive pass interference penalty that Foster drew that took us down to the 2-yard line. And those kind of opportunities here, I know it's easy. You can do this with every quarterback, but Josh very easily could have had a, 15 of 21 kind of game for 255 yards, and it would have been the exact same game.
Yep.
It would have been the exact same kind of thing. Now, I will say I also did have two of those nasty roll to your right, throw back across your body that he was probably fortunate not to have two interceptions. There were two balls that the Detroit defender had his hands on the ball and then lost it rolling over or didn't get his feet down in bounds. And we're probably pretty fortunate they didn't challenge the one because it did kind of look like he tapped his toes. So maybe fortunate on a couple balls that he put at risk, but it was a smart game overall. He was forced to contain himself and not unleash his running again, and he did it successfully and led us on a fourth quarter game-winning drive to be able to pull this out. So I was really pleased with what we saw from Josh Allen today and thought that he played a nice game that wasn't amazing and highlight filled, but was a steady professional game. And one of the games that you touched on earlier, we were told he wasn't going to have. He wasn't going to be able to do this, to have touch passes and to be able to get the ball out to the guys that had nice swing routes, and that, we did take our deep shots here or there. But I thought he played within himself and didn't get frustrated, didn't let them force him into bad throws or into, off-platform situations. And that's what we need to see going forward.
Absolutely. And just a couple of things on that. I was told a lot this past week. I was defending Josh Allen. I want to preface this with, I don't think people understand it's a very binary world we live in right now. And my defense of Josh Allen does not mean that I think he's the best quarterback in the NFL or the best quarterback to ever exist. My defense is that his floor is higher than I thought, and a lot of people thought. I didn't have him as a round one quarterback. You can go back on my Twitter and see where I thought about Josh Allen. So all I'm saying is that his floor is higher than I anticipated that it would be, and that I'm very happy about that, and that's okay. And Louis Riddick touched on it this week. He's been very high on the Chicago Bears, and I follow a lot of Bears stuff, and he was saying, they don't have to get great play out of Mitchell Trubisky. He just has to not lose the game. And I think the Bills are trying to build kind of that same way. They'll get some good talent on the offensive side of the ball for him, but the defense is really going to drive this team moving forward. And if they can do that, they can replicate some of how the Bears have been able to win games. And you just saw today, the Bears won their division. That's not a terrible thing to have a dominant defense and a guy that just does enough to keep you in the game, but doesn't lose the game for you. And if that's what Josh Allen ends up, that's where his ceiling ends up being fantastic. But I do think the ceiling is higher. But today we saw, obviously, like you touched on a couple times where he could have made mistakes, but I think overall he did just enough to keep the ball moving. I had people telling me on Twitter, wait till a team forces him to stay in the pocket and not run. We saw that today. And again, they didn't blow the doors off this defense, but he doesn't have the tools. He's not going to come out and blow the doors off of any defense with the tools that they have. If they win games this year, they're going to be close games. And I'm fine with that. And I think the things you see is the development and then the intangibles of the guy is a gamer. He wants to win. He has no issues diving headfirst for first downs. He has no issues running over a guy. Don't want to see that, but you don't see him hesitate to try to do everything it takes to win a game. And that's something that you can't that ability. And I know one guy I was talking to on Twitter compared him to Jamarcus Russell, and that intangible that he has is exactly what Jamarcus Russell didn't have, was the ability to get better, the love for the game of football and wanting to get better. And Allen has that, and you've got to be excited, man.
Yeah, I've said that like 4 or 5 times now, that people try to throw Jamarcus Russell at me like it's some insult, and I keep responding back, yeah, I actually think that Josh Allen could be what Jamarcus Russell was supposed to be. That if you had that much raw talent, but you had a really good attitude and a great work ethic and the ability to be coachable, maybe he's what Jamarcus Russell could have been, rather than someone who, lied about watching film and then washed out of the league so quickly because he didn't care about or love football.
Yeah, and just gained 30 pounds every.
Yeah. So people throw that out there like it's some insult that they think that's the way Josh Allen's going to end up. And I actually think some of the parallels are actually pretty close, that they came into the league not that far off, all arm, all athleticism, really needed to learn how to, throttle that down and play within the framework of the offense. And Josh has actually been willing to do that, which Jamarcus never was. So, I know people use it as a joke, but maybe he can turn out to be what Jamarcus was supposed to be.
Yeah, and if you follow me on Twitter, you'll see obviously the hyperbolic fan, I love Josh and all that stuff, but I'm still realistic of where he's at in his development, and he hasn't made it yet, and there's still questions about what type of quarterback he's going to be, but I think that the optimism should be trending among Bills fans, and that there is some hope that this guy is, they found something here and found something that a guy like Brian Daboll can work with the tools that he has and kind of build an offense for a guy like this. We're seeing that, and there's no reason to not be optimistic. There's too much pessimism out there about Josh Allen, and I get that he's flawed, and we could talk about the flaws and be critical about some of the things that he does. I'm fine with that. But the consistent pessimism, there's no reason for it. There's definitely some optimism associated to the quarterback position for the future, and that is a great feeling as a Bills fan.
Absolutely. One of the things that I was excited about, one of the first things that I found that maybe he can steal from Tom Brady for the past 15 years has been the best sneak quarterback in the NFL. Josh is damn good at quarterback sneaks. He has a great sense for where to put himself. He's athletic and strong and big. He knows when to jump up and put the ball over the top. He knows when to burrow down and to get through there. He's gotten the first down or the touchdown in almost every quarterback sneak situation. And that seems like a trivial little thing, but there's a lot of teams who struggle with that. And it's nice that when you're in 3rd and inches or 4th and inches, for the Patriots for 15 years now, it's been automatic, and he just automatically goes in there and steals it on quick timing, no, silent count crap that he just goes in and kind of flicks the center's inner thigh and then gets it. And I want to steal that. I want to have that. And I think Josh has shown not only that, but a really solid penchant for using the hard snap count. He got them again on a critical play that got us down into 3rd and inches. It was going to be 3rd and 5.5. He got them to jump there and then came back for the 3rd and short. We got stuffed. And then I was actually pretty impressed that McDermott gave him the confidence to be able to go in and to be able to go for it on 4th down to seal the game. And again, that doesn't seem like a big deal, but there's a lot of years and a lot of other coaches that would have punted there and tried to, no, let's pin him deep. Let's try to make sure, let the defense win the game. No, he let Josh Allen go for it on 4th down, put the ball in our quarterback's hands to go win us the game. And he did. And then he got to kneel it out. And that's an awesome sign to see, and the confidence and faith that they had. And again, it was a game between two teams with nothing to win. And, is it the greatest thing you've ever seen? No, but that's a nice, discernible positive that I took away from today.
Yeah, absolutely. The sneak thing I've been crazy about over the last few years. The Bills don't do it. They haven't done it. They couldn't do it with Tyrod. It's a game of inches, and sometimes that makes all the difference in a game. I've seen New England make all the difference in a game with Brady's ability to do that. It sounds like such a little thing to talk this much time on a podcast about, but it's really exciting that we have a guy that can get that done. I don't know what else to say. So, I mean, it's just another tool that he has that guys that we've had here before haven't been able to do.
Aaron, you're going to be shocked. We've talked about Josh Allen way too long. It's never happened before.
Weird. That's not going to happen all spring, I swear.
Real quickly, wrapping up the offensive side of the ball, we did talk about the receivers. Foster played a great game. Again, McKenzie is rounding into a nice, dependable receiver. Foster still fights the ball sometimes. He had that double catch along the sideline that I think we got fortunate that it didn't get overturned. Yeah. So he's not quite as natural with it. McKenzie is obviously limited. He's never going to be a huge primary target because he's so small, but I mean, he's a legitimate NFL athlete. I like having him on the roster. I hope he's our 5th receiver next year to be able to be, punt return, kick return, gadget, jet sweeps, eye candy to keep the defense off kilter. I'm happy that he's on our roster and a nice piece to go forward. And again, he's cheap depth, and I love cheap depth.
Yep. I would like to see Ray develop a little bit more. I'm not seeing what I would have liked to seen out of him, but obviously with McKenzie in the fold, kind of takes that role away from him. So kind of
very literally, he stole his
role. Yeah. So we might not see Ray continue to be a member of this team moving forward because of that. If McKenzie sticks, Josh Allen needs a guy that's reliable. I really am not down on Zay yet, but it does look like the confidence has dipped again recently. I'm hoping that he can be the guy that is a reliable target. You're going to need that guy that can come over the middle, squat on a route, and make a catch. And I just don't think they have the guy that Josh Allen has a ton of faith in to be able to do that. We're going to need that. But overall, with what they're putting out there for receivers, I'm not mad. at the production that they're getting. It's not a very impressive looking unit on paper. So obviously we all want to see that get fixed in the offseason. The thing I'm more disappointed in, though, when it comes to pass catchers is the tight ends. They don't even exist.
Do we have a tight end?
I'm fine with Kroom coming back as a third tight end next year, but I don't want anything to do with Logan Thomas moving forward. And Charles Clay, I'm pretty done with as well. I defended him for a lot of years in that contract, but this year he's making himself pretty indefensible.
Marco said Noah Fant in the chat, and it got me excited for a second. Honestly, I don't think we have a tight end right now on the roster who's a lock for the roster next year. There's some people who are excited about Jason Kroom.
Kroom's sticking around, if you know what I mean.
All right, he's dating the owner's daughter. He's probably not getting cut. But he's fine. Like, I don't dislike him, but he's not a lock to me. He's certainly in that category of can be upgraded. Right. Clay is for sure gone. He's just playing out the string here, so we don't have to sign anybody else. Yeah. Logan Thomas being a healthy scratch the last couple of weeks is the writing on the wall for him. We're going through this, youth movement and evaluation period, and he's not even getting to play. So that tells you all you need to know about Logan Thomas. So my guess is we sign a starting caliber or decent value level tight end. There's not anyone great out there this year. Jared Cook is a free agent. He's too old and is probably going to want to go to a ready-built contender. I actually like two of the young guys in Cincinnati, both CJ Uzoma and Tyler Croft are both free agents. I like both of them. Mm-hmm. I think there's some opportunity there. Then I know that, again, we were joking. Marco brought it up in the chat, but Noah Fant is a ridiculous athlete. I'm fine if we wait a little bit. I don't know that I want to invest the first round pick that he would take. If there's a trade down, I would rather see us have a franchise level tight end left tackle in the first round, but I want to see us draft a tight end in the top 3, maybe 4 rounds at the latest. So I would guess that we sign someone who's a potential starter. We draft a guy who can be developed behind there. Maybe we trade down and get someone like Fant in the first round, but most likely the next tier of good athletic tight end talent. And then Kroom is there as the competing for that backup tight end 3 role to be able to go forward. But I won't be shocked if we have 3 new tight ends next year either.
There's always going to be guys too in the draft process, the later it goes on, that start to come out of the woodwork that are good tight end prospects. It always happens. It's a little bit deeper than everyone expects. I really thought that they should have drafted one last year. I think that was the one maybe downside of the draft that I didn't like, was they didn't take a tight end in the draft last year. I liked the class. So I think that it's definitely a top priority going into this next draft.
Yeah, I'm running out of fingers to count how many priorities I have, but it's on the list. Let's go ahead and switch over to the defensive side of the ball. Honestly, we don't spend a ton of time on it because it's so consistent. They do such a good job. We did give up 2 ugly touchdown drives early on, and it was stark how huge the difference was. Their first 4 drives accounted for 200 yards. Mm-hmm. All the remainder of their drives together accounted for less than 100 yards. Yeah. So it was unbelievable how they really ratcheted down. At one point, it was their first 4 was 200 yards. Their next 4 combined was 69 yards. And they barely gave up much after that. So it was a great opportunity to be able to go through and just see how they were playing. I thought Jordan Poyer played a great game and was all over the field. I thought Tremaine Edmonds had one of his most consistent games. I didn't see a ton of mistakes or isolation in pass coverage, especially with someone like Theo Riddick that I was kind of nervous about. I actually thought that the defensive line was solid. I saw a couple nice flashes from Star Lotulelei was walking his guy back over and over again. There wasn't a ton of the big flash plays. I think that we didn't actually have a sack. We didn't have a turnover. So there was a couple tackles for loss that were nice. Mm-hmm. Zoe flashed on a couple of those, but it was
Shaq had a couple.
Yeah, Shaq had a huge one. And then also the pass breakup where he probably would have had a sack. So overall, I thought it was a nice, steady, but probably not spectacular game by the defense.
Yeah, it wasn't their prettiest game that we've seen. I think we've come to the expectations that we've set on this defense. Somebody called us out in one of the podcasts we did, like, hey, you guys are a little harsh on the defense today with what they actually did. I think the expectation that they've set is so high. The thing that makes me the most excited about this defense is again, we played Detroit. They're not the best team in the league, but their ability to make adjustments. And we saw early in the year, McDermott take over the play calling from Leslie Frazier. I think maybe one of the most underrated storylines of this year is I think a lot of guys that would ruin and fracture a relationship. There's so many egos in the NFL, but Leslie Frazier and Sean McDermott seem to get right past it. Leslie Frazier, by all accounts, has taken back over the defense or has worked with Sean McDermott to call this defense up. And the adjustments that they make throughout the game and fix the issues mid-game is something that we have not seen in Buffalo in a long time, really on any units. They've lacked the ability to make adjustments all across the board here for years, and you see really good teams do that. So that is what makes me the most excited about this defense. Isn't any really necessarily the individual play, but their ability as a whole to make adjustments throughout the game and really shut down what the offense is doing when an offense gets going.
Yeah, and I think I was really nervous. I didn't talk about it a lot, but I was very apprehensive about what they were going to do, losing both Taron Johnson and Matt Milano, who were just critical pieces to our pass coverage, controlling tight ends, backs out of the backfield, a lot of the communication on the inside. They were critical pieces to be able to allow the handoff from, our higher end talent like Poyer and Hyde and Trey White and guys like that. I thought Levi Wallace was steady again today, but having guys step in, Raphael Bush played a lot of snaps at that corner spot, and we were pretty much running that big nickel, at a high rate, at a consistent level as kind of our nickel setup. Zoe was out there more than his normal amount, and then Corey Thompson, I thought, did well in the fact that you didn't really notice he was there. So he wasn't getting burnt. He wasn't getting toasted on any of those plays to give up some big gash play. So I thought they did really well overall. It was a nice, steady game that we've come to depend on. And, again, I think that the exact opposite of the offense, where the offense, I can count a handful of players that are rock solid locks to make the roster next year.
Yep.
Almost all of our defense is a rock solid lock to make the roster next year. I think we're going to see very little turnover. I pray that Kyle Williams wants to come back. Kyle Williams is welcome on my football team as long as he wants to play. His value in the locker room, in the film room, is invaluable. You cannot put a price tag on what he offers. Hopefully they're able to work out a deal where maybe he gets comfortable with a maybe 40% snap count on the high leverage plays, maybe not out there for all the first and second downs, but every third down, all the goal line, all the big leverage, high value plays. We have him out there and we find a way to manage his reps and get one more year out of him. I pray that we get that. I think Lorenzo Alexander is a lock for a contract next year, and I sure hope it's here. He's said a lot about wanting to stay here. I think that Sean McDermott is a guy who really values that veteran input and, his contribution to the roster. So I actually think it's very likely that we see Zoe probably get a 2-year extension and then they kind of manage it year to year, but he's more than earned that. I think that he's a legitimate contender for a Pro Bowl spot, which is crazy. And obviously it's awesome to see him in the running for the NFL Walter Payton Man of the Year. Right. And you hear it universally. Every media member that interacts with him, everyone. I know a lot of the guys that listen to this, love Del Reed and the team over at 26 Shirts. They've actually made us some nice shirts. Del talks about what an awesome person he is and how eager he always is to contribute. He jumps on and does film with the team here at Cover One. He's just a great person, and that's the kind of guy you want around that locker room. And obviously, that's no handout contract. He is playing at a great level, and somebody that in the limited, third linebacker pass rusher role that he's playing, he's really good at that. And I think that preserves him the same way we did this year. We'll do, no Wednesday practices for Kyle and Zoe, let them come in and just kind of contribute and play as they can. But beyond that, what do we need? Maybe I'd like to re-sign Jordan Phillips. I'd like to find a new cornerback too that allows us to move Levi Wallace to the fourth cornerback. You get Taron Johnson back healthy, and then that's about it. Maybe a young athletic linebacker in the 5th round to develop behind Zoe to take over the year after.
Develop another pass rusher, a guy flies off a roster somewhere.
Yeah, everything's going to be gravy, really. Yeah. I don't think besides cornerback two is a legitimate need. Yeah. Re-signing Jordan Phillips, I think, is a legitimate need. And losing Kyle or Zoe would be a legitimate need, but I hope that they both want to come back. But I think the defense is really well established and well set, and likely to be probably 8 of the 11, 9, maybe even 11 out of 11 starters back next year, depending on that cornerback 2 spot.
Yeah, absolutely agree. And the nice thing is some of the guys that you didn't mention, the young guys, should take big steps forward, and we still have them under their contract control. You have, hoping Milano comes back healthy. Edmund should take a big step forward in year 2 after a whole offseason program, putting some weight on. The kid's still growing, which is unbelievable. But when it comes to the conversation you're having about Kyle and Lorenzo Alexander, and I think also a guy that fans really need to pump the brakes on and back up off of is Star Lotulelei, because I think he's done a fantastic job doing what he was brought in here to do. Don't care about his contracts. That isn't for me. I'm a fan. That's for Brandon Beane, who I trust, and he's managed to get us into a healthy cap situation. So I'm not even worried about Star Lotulelei's cap number. He's done exactly what he needed to do, which was fill a hole in the middle of the defense that was gaping last year, and they saw that as a priority. He's come in and done that for them. So that's a great thing. But to Kyle and Lorenzo, you hear Sean McDermott talk a lot about the what does he call leadership council? He works with those guys all the time. He's talking about Lorenzo Alexander, Kyle Williams, and then a number of other guys, but it's primarily those 2 guys are his leadership council. They are his conduit and his voice to the players and keeping everything in this locker room. And we talked about this locker room, going into a game where you have 4 wins and you're playing up for the game. That type of stuff and that culture that he's trying to build, that foundation, guys like Kyle Williams and Lorenzo Alexander are invaluable to that. And the fact that they add stuff on the field still is just an added bonus, because I think even if they weren't adding things on the field, that there's still a value to Sean McDermott to have those guys in the locker room with him going into battle every week. So I also think that they are both guys that are self-aware of where they are in their careers. And you see that with the way when Kyle was mic'd up this summer and the way that he pulls Harrison Phillips over to the side and teaches him everything he knows. You heard about it with Marcel Darius, him teaching him everything he knows. He knows that his time is running up and that his legacy at this point is where he leaves this team and what position he leaves this team in. So I think it's invaluable to bring these guys back, whether or not they were producing or not. So I hope that it happens. I think the only thing that would maybe keep it from happening is if there's some kind of lingering injury throughout the year that either one of them have that we don't really know about, that they say, you know what, I don't know if I can do another grind like this at this age. And I got to call it quits for my family. Outside of that, I would be stunned if they aren't back on this roster next year.
Yeah, I'm very hopeful and optimistic. I know a lot of people tried to read between the lines and kind of read the tea leaves with his comments with Tremaine Edmonds this week. Kyle having him take over the Thursday 9-on-7 film session that he's been running for years and years. I think that speaks more to where they respect Tremaine and what he's going to need to do going forward than some passing of the torch, meaning he's for sure not going to be on the roster next year. But it's not crazy to connect those dots. And, it does make me a little bit nervous, but I'm not reading into that too much. I still think there's a 50-50 proposition that he'll be back on the roster next year.
No, I took that as, hey, I'm a leader on this team and I'm going to give some confidence to the young guy who's calling the defense and help build that confidence. And if that is the case, I think that type of, teammate is so invaluable, to have a guy, basically a coach that lines up and plays with your guys. It's a crazy benefit to the Bills defense.
All right. As we kind of wrap things up here, we talked already a little bit about
special teams.
The special teams. Matt Darr was terrible, but that's what you get for your 4th different punter on the roster who was a street free agent. I don't care what you tell me. Something's wrong with Steven Hauschka. Not a single kickoff went out of the end zone, and he didn't attempt a single field goal. And we had 3 field goal attempt situations that a coach like Sean McDermott doesn't ever pass up. So I don't know if it's, hey, he's good enough, but we don't want to have to sign another kicker off the street and have to IR or mess with 2 kickers on a roster. But it doesn't seem like Steven Hauschka's right and everything's there. So we'll see where that goes.
It reeks like not wanting an additional roster spot to me. It just smells like that.
Or I'll give them the benefit of the doubt that maybe he did tweak the back thing when he got into the game today and was only able to do extra points, and that they didn't know that going in, but they learned as the game went. I don't know. I'll give them the benefit of the doubt that maybe there's something like that. But again, nothing special on returns, nothing good, and that's what happens when you have a horrible coach like Danny Crossman.
Yep.
Overall takeaways from the game and what you're looking forward to. I know that some people will be upset. If a loss would have put us at the 5th draft pick, a win put us at the 10th draft pick. I don't particularly care. I don't think that's a huge difference. I think that there's very likely that we're probably going to finish 1-1, something like that. I think there's a decent chance we can hang with the Patriots, but we're going to be a heavy underdog in Foxborough next week. And then I think there's a decent chance we can beat the Dolphins at home in the final game. And I want Josh Allen to play well. I want Robert Foster to play well. I want Zay Jones to bounce back. I want our defense to keep playing well. I don't want people to get hurt. And I want the team to learn to win and to be exciting going into the offseason. And I would rather that the team has a sales pitch for free agents of, hey, come and play with this guy, and that we're still going to have a good draft pick no matter what. You know, our worst case scenario is probably 12 or 13 or 14. Our best case scenario is probably 6 or 7. And there's just not a world of difference there in where it is. It's not like we're drafting a quarterback and we have to have that top spot to get the top guy. You know, would I like a higher pick than not? Sure, but I'm just not going to lose sleep over that. I'd rather Josh Allen learn to play well and learn to win, and we'll be happy to have that versus, you know, tanking and trying to get a better pick for just picks sake.
Yeah. No, I agree. And I think that I've read some economists' views on draft predictions and things like that, and I think it's 30% success rate in the first round of the NFL draft, regardless of where you pick in the draft. I don't think it changes a whole lot from pick 6 to 13. You're still getting about the same hit rate for a successful player at that position. So I'm not interested in giving up the opportunities that they have right now to put things on film, develop guys with live bullets. We talk about all the time in the preseason and training camp of getting guys. You don't get the live bullets throughout that whole period. It's a build up to it. There is no more valuable time for a young roster with guys that you're hoping that are going to stick than this past, you know, the last 6 weeks of this season to really develop that talent. And we got a couple more left, and I'm very excited. I have a lot of optimism about what they're going to be able to put on film and what the coaches are going to be able to see and maybe tweak about their games and do with them going into next year and continue to develop some of that talent. And the coaches that can't develop got to go. And the guys that can develop, I want to see them further develop this young talent. And I think there's a lot of reasons to be optimistic. Deion Dawkins tweeted it out after the win. Obviously not a huge win, but he said something special is brewing here with the Bills and that they have a special team. And I think we saw that last year when they made the playoffs and how everybody embraced it. Obviously a down year, but I think that thing that is special about them is still there. And we'll see it when the wins start to happen, but there's a lot to be excited about as far as the talent and development and getting that on tape for the coaches.
Absolutely. And I think we have a lot to be excited about as a team. We have a lot of opportunity to be able to build this roster up, whether through draft picks, through free agents, and just opportunity to add people. And I think that we've seen a front office that has been able to spend wisely and has hit on more picks than they've missed on. They haven't hit on everything, but we've had some very solid contributing picks here that I think we have reason to be excited about their ability to evaluate talent. And the guys we're talking about, like Levi Wallace, Robert Foster, Isaiah McKenzie, those are guys that were just, you know, they were going after to be able to add to this roster because I think we have a good eye for that. So, you know, not that we have some huge advantage over other teams, that there are other teams that are good at that as well, but maybe we're above average at that and can feel confident that we can use these resources to rebuild, and we won't hit on everything. Yep. There'll be, you know, some good players brought in.
Yep, absolutely.
All right, guys. We'll wrap some things up here. Again, check out all the content over at cover1.net. Had some exciting things going on. I know Eric had an agreement put together with Del Reed. They put together some awesome Cover One shirts. If you're interested, I think we have those available for $20. You can DM us, reach out to Eric. I know that he was doing some things there along with the premium membership. So looking to be able to get some more people in the premium Slack, get you hooked up to what we have going on. It's going to be a really exciting offseason. We're going to do a deep dive into every position group as we go through the weeks, filling some time between the end of the season and the draft and free agency. I think it's going to be really exciting to kind of look at what we can do with this roster and where we can go with it. So keep an eye on what we have going on. You can find me out on Twitter, usually, arguing with fans and trying to follow back Bills fans. I'm at Greg Tompsett, GregTompsett. Aaron, where can the people find you?
You can find me at Aaron Quinn 716, doing a lot of edits, like doing sports edits and things like that. Obviously, we talked about it. I'm doing a lot of Josh Allen edits because there's not a lot of fun, exciting players on the Bills to do. But then you can find me, same as Greg, just engaging with Bills fans every chance I get. My wife gets real mad at me when she sees me. My eyes start squinting, and she's like, "You're on Twitter again, aren't you?" And, yeah, I am. So come find me. I like a good debate. I like a good conversation. And when I say don't at me, I'm really just fishing for you to at me. So do it.
I can confirm that's true. All right, guys. Thanks for everything here. We're getting close to Aaron and I's favorite day of the year. Christmas is coming. My actual favorite day is Christmas Eve, where I get to go to my grandma's house on my mom's side, and it's a big, huge, loud Italian family all shoved in this little house, and it's my favorite day of the year. So really looking forward to that coming up here. We've got another game here with the Patriots, and then we'll close out with the Dolphins. So only 4 more regular season podcasts with Aaron and I, so we're looking forward to wrapping things up, and then we'll get into our off-season mode. So keep an eye on everything we have going on there at cover1.net. We'll talk to you guys soon.